Hello and welcome to our webcast today, which is titled Increasing Administrative Support to Achieve Systems Change in Educational Settings for Students with Autism Spectrum Disorders. My name is Noelle Woolard and I'm a Technical Assistance Associate at VCU and the Autism Center for Excellence. And today I'm joined for this webcast with two of my colleagues, Holly Wittenberg from Hampton City Public Schools and Jessica Davis from Middlesex County Public Schools. In our webcast today, we're going to cover a couple different things. We'll first cover the importance of administrator support and look at what some of the research tells us specific to increasing administrative support and how it relates to student outcomes. We'll then look at some documents that we've created through the Autism Center for Excellence that can help teachers or administrators evaluate teachers who instruct or teach students with autism. This document is aligned with Virginia's teacher performance standards and evaluation criteria. We're then going to shift a little bit and talk about some supports that one Virginia school division has made specific to increasing their administrative support for those teachers who work with students with autism. And then we're going to wrap things up by looking at some specific strategies that administrators can use to support those teachers who work with students with autism. Okay, so let's first talk about our situation in public schools today. Well, we know at this point that there are more and more students with autism being educated across the nation in public school settings. In fact, the numbers of students with autism have quadrupled since the 2000 and 2001 school year. So we were looking at 93,000 students in that year to now approximately 400,000 students with autism. So we know that this is also about 1.1% of our population. So specifically, let's look at Virginia. We've actually seen a pretty significant increase in the numbers of students with autism from last year alone. December 1, 2012 child count is reporting that there are 14,464 students with autism with a primary diagnosis being educated in our public schools. Again, this is a 28% increase from last year. We also know that in our current educational system that general education and special education in many divisions are typically viewed as two separate entities, meaning that those teachers that instruct those general education students are mainly supervised by the building level administrator and receive the majority of their supports from the building level administrator. While those teachers that instruct and support the students with special education needs, those teachers are typically supported and evaluated by the special education directors and coordinators. And then finally, we know that professional development opportunities within school divisions vary greatly. We know that some buildings require professional development activities for teachers, and they measure their teachers' growth and how it pertains to student academic achievement, while some buildings may not have any professional development opportunities and are not looking at the professional development needs of their teachers. Okay, so let's shift and look about and talk about administrator knowledge in autism spectrum disorder. Well, we all know that with the reauthorization of No Child Left Behind in 2001, administrators and teachers are held accountable to demonstrate that students are making growth. But administrators may not necessarily know what supports and strategies are effective for students with autism so that these students actually do make the growth that they need to make. We also know that many administrators have had no formal training in any autism spectrum disorders. So, for example, they may not know the communication needs, the social needs, as well as the behavioral needs of this population. And without that information, it's difficult for them to participate in conversations specific to placement, staff scheduling, and additional resources that may be needed across their building. And for those administrators who may have knowledge of autism, perhaps they may not have knowledge of what effective evidence-based practices would look like in a public school setting for those students, which can make it very frustrating for teachers who are instructing the students. It can make it very frustrating for students, and then also those families that support their children. So administrator support is very important, and there are a variety of reasons. It's been documented in the research that increased quality and quantity of administrative support has actually shaped a teacher's perspective of how they view their teaching practices in the classroom. If a teacher feels that they are being supported and they have the support of their administrators, they're more apt to actually implement evidence-based practices to fidelity. Additionally, teachers who feel supported within their school divisions are probably going to stay in their teaching role the following year and the following year, leading to staff retention. And then finally, administrator knowledge of autism can really help to foster those relationships between parents and other community members, as it is a true collaborative endeavor. So I'm going to shift a little bit and talk to you about the VCU Autism Center for Excellence and the development of our state goal, specific to administrator support. So back in February of 2011, there was a superintendent's memo that was released where school divisions across Virginia were invited to apply for technical assistance support. And this support would occur over a 3 to 5 year period. 41 school divisions, or 41 applications, were received by VCU-ACE, which was an overwhelming number of applications to receive. And only a handful of those divisions were able to be selected because of resources. But one of the things that we did notice in all 41 of those applications were that divisions were extremely motivated to make change specific to their students with autism. And not only were they motivated to make change, they wanted to start right now. So while we only had resources to support several school divisions across Virginia, 12 to be specific, we did want to make sure that those divisions who were motivated to see change had resources and supports available to them to make change possible. Across those 41 applications that we initially received, there were some common themes, some common areas where divisions, special ed directors, teachers, parents, other administrators, they really thought that change needed to happen in some specific areas. And one of those areas was admin or administration support. So at the Autism Center for Excellence, we created a state goal, meaning that folks across the entire state of Virginia would come together to work on supports, resources, and documents to help those school divisions that wanted to improve their administrator support. So I'm going to read to you what our state goal is. VCU-ACE will develop performance standards and evaluation criteria for teachers who support students with autism spectrum disorders in alignment with the Virginia Department of Education's Uniform Performance Standards and Evaluation Criteria for teachers, administrators, and superintendents. VCU-ACE will develop a guidance document, resources, and autism observation checklist for administrators to evaluate educational programs and the implementation of evidence-based practices and meaningful instruction. VCU-ACE will release these tools to the Commonwealth for school divisions to use. Okay, so we had a state goal. We knew the direction that we wanted to follow. We knew the direction or the trajectory that we were moving in, but we needed to first get information and feedback from our school divisions to know what types of resources are you interested in having? What kinds of support tools do you think that you need? And we held focus groups across our school divisions in Virginia. We talked with our advisory council members, and then we also created a statewide work group. And these folks told us some very specific things. First, they said to us, make sure your documents and your tools are aligned with the Virginia Teacher Performance Standards. Give us something that we can use that will help us when we evaluate our teachers. Please do not give us something that is an addition to what we are already doing, but give us something that will help us complete our work in this area. They also asked that the documents that we created be aligned with the Virginia Autism Council's teacher competencies, the autism competencies. So we knew that we had to create something that was aligned with Virginia Department of Education's teacher performance standards and also with the Virginia Autism Council's autism competencies. And finally, they wanted to see examples of what best practice might look like in specific classrooms for general ed and also for special ed. So we definitely had our work cut out for us. We knew what divisions needed, what they wanted, and we had to get busy making this happen. So the first thing that we did is that we started attending many in-services and workshops on Virginia's teacher performance standards. We wanted to make sure what we were using looked the same in terms of structure and format to what Virginia Department of Education was requiring of its teachers and administrators. So, Virginia Department of Education has a document that includes 7 different standards. And under each of those standards are indicators or look for behaviors that an administrator can visually look for as they're doing their formal observations or their walkthroughs throughout the school year. In addition, these indicators can be looked at by the classroom teacher and can assist the classroom teacher as they develop their teacher evaluation portfolio, which is one piece, again, of that teacher evaluation system. So we created a document, again, that was very similar in structure and format using those 7 indicators, and then we surveyed our school divisions. We created an electronic survey where we asked specific questions of our divisions. We asked them to review the tool, and we asked them questions like, do you believe that our tool is aligned with the teacher performance standards specific to Virginia? Is our tool comprehensive? Is it clear? And finally, is this a tool that you believe would benefit you as you go and evaluate your teachers? And overwhelmingly, the feedback that we got was, yes, this is a tool that we could definitely use. We want this. Oh, and when will it be available for us to use? Okay. So what I'd like to do right now is introduce you to this tool. Again, there are 7 different standards which I have included in this PowerPoint, but we only have time during this webcast to really go and we only have time for me to introduce you to about 2 of those standards. So what I plan to do is look at standard number 2, which is instructional planning, standard number 3, which is instructional delivery, and label or list out or describe to you some of those indicators or look-fors for administrators, and then also give you a video with some of those examples in it. Okay, so let's move on to number 2, standard number 2, instructional planning. Okay, and what we did when we created this document is we used the very same language that the Virginia Department of Education used to identify or to describe what instructional planning is, which is the teacher uses the Virginia Standards of Learning, the school's curriculum, effective strategies, resources, and data to meet the needs of all students. Some of the indicators or look for behaviors under this specific standard would be uses student learning to guide planning, aligns IEP objectives to instructional plans. Master schedule is set up in the classroom and used by all staff. Staff roles and responsibilities are clearly communicated with all team members, including paraprofessionals. Instructional materials are organized and accessible to staff prior to instructional delivery. The teacher aligns instructional plans to the SOLs and school curriculum, develops a classroom management plan and individual behavior plans as needed, plans instruction by embedding communication and social skills development, develops plans based on evidence-based practices. The classroom environment is clearly identified, allowing for students to understand boundaries, and plans for transition while encouraging self-determination. Now, again, these are look-fors or indicators that can help guide an administrator in terms of evaluation, but these are not necessarily all of the different things that you would have to see in the standard of instructional planning. It's just a guideline or a framework that administrators can use as they do their evaluation. So what I'd like to do now is show you a short video clip. And again, this is a document or a resource that's in development at this time, and I'm just introducing this resource to you during this webcast. But I want you to look at this video clip, and I want you to think about those different indicators or look for behaviors that I just listed. Which items, which indicators do you actually see in our video? So here we have a teacher planning for her instruction. She's first looking at the student data and using that student data to create lesson plans. Here's an individual schedule that's posted in the classroom. And here's a video of a teacher and an evaluator who are actually looking at data specific to a behavioral intervention plan and making informed decisions and changes based on that data. Is there anything else that you'd like to share other than just the data?
As of right now, the behavior plan is working very well, and the students are engaged in all activities, both in and out of the classroom. So I think the thing we're working on is working very well.
Excellent. Okay, so it sounds like we just need to continue doing what we're doing because it's working at this point. Okay, great. And finally, here are some video clips depicting a classroom environment where the boundaries for students are clearly defined. So that would be under the standard of instructional delivery. And with this tool that is currently in development, we're hoping to expand the video examples and have some voiceover for each of those examples so that administrators, when they might be evaluating a teacher under instructional planning, can go in and see specific examples. Examples that might look very similar to what they would see in their own classrooms or their teachers' classrooms. Okay, so let's move on and talk about standard number 3, which is instructional delivery. And again, we pulled the same wording from the Virginia Teacher Performance Standards. So under instructional delivery, the teacher effectively engages students in learning by using a variety of instructional strategies in order to meet the individual learning needs. Okay, so some of the indicators or look-fors under the standard are engages and maintains students in active learning, uses a variety of effective instructional strategies and resources individualized to each student's needs, provides reinforcement to students based upon their individual needs, effectively uses prompts to support students and to promote independence, implements accommodations and modifications defined by the IEP, differentiates instruction to meet the student's needs, implements instruction based on the student's needs in the areas of communication and in social skills. Instructional language is clear and concise to the individual learner, implements classroom management plans and behavior intervention plans, and implements evidence-based practices during instruction. So again, what I'd like to do is show you a video clip and that will demonstrate some of those indicators or look-for behaviors. So the first video shows students that are engaged and in active learning activities.
You guys did a great job in reading.
They finished their learning activity and now they have received their reward or their reinforcement for completion of that activity.
All right, boys, you have 2 minutes and then we need to give our iPads up, okay?
You'll see that a teacher has set a timer next to the students. And when the timer has gone off, she removes their reward and then again directs them to some active learning activities. This is a video example of a student who has specific math problems that he needs to complete, and once they're completed, he has access to his reinforcement. The teacher then goes and uses a visual support to show the student how many more problems he must complete before he has access to reinforcement. Again, some more visual examples and supports.
What do you want to work for? Candy or the truck?
And this is a video of a student who is learning the concept of if and then. If you complete this, then you can earn your desired reward.
Then you can get the truck. Okay. Just dump it out. Uh-oh, can you get that one? Turn them all over. Are you finished?
You see the teacher using effective prompting strategies to assist the student in completion of the if-then schedule, and therefore he can gain access to his reinforcer.
Here you go.
So again, I want to mention that I did include 6 of the 7 standards in your PowerPoint for you to review. And we're hoping that this document will be available for school divisions to use in the fall of 2013. So in a couple months, we should have this document ready to go and in the hands of folks who are interested in using it for systems change within their division. I want to shift a little bit and talk about one other resource that we did create for those administrators who maybe wanted a little bit more information specific to autism to evaluate their teachers. We created an autism spectrum disorders scoring rubric. And this rubric is consistent with the evaluation criteria or the scoring criteria for the Virginia Department of Education, meaning that we use the same wording of exemplary, proficient, developing needs, and unacceptable. And what we did is we took each one of the standards and then the indicators underneath each standard, and we defined what it might look like in the classroom for a teacher to score a rating of exemplary, proficient, developing needs, and unacceptable. So again, this is another resource that is available for administrators within our school divisions to use if they would like to have it. At this point, specific to our Autism Spectrum Disorders Teacher Performance Standards and Evaluation Criteria tool and our Evaluation Criteria Rubric, we are at the point where we are fine-tuning these documents, and then we are hoping to disseminate it. We are also currently working on an online training which will be housed on the Autism Center for Excellence website, which will show video examples of specific indicators under some of those specific standards that we talked about today. And then finally, we're going to be working on the development of companion documents, specifically guidance documents for divisions to use, for administrators to use, as they're trying to look for maybe more information, more resources for their teachers specific to communication, socialization, behavior management. Okay, and I think at this point, we are going to transition over to Holly Wittenberg, who is going to share with us some of the different supports and strategies that have been implemented in Hampton City Public Schools, specific to administrator support.
Thanks, Noelle. My name's Holly Wittenberg, and I'm a special education coordinator with Hampton City Schools. Hampton City Schools applied for one of the technical assistance grants through VCU's Autism Center for Excellence 3 years ago, and we received it. Since that time, we have been working on some initiatives and strategies to support systems change within our own division, and I wanted to share some of those with you today. When we first received the grant from the Autism Center for Excellence, one of the first things that we did was we brought some people together into focus groups. We had representatives of some of our school-based administrators, related service providers, teachers. We really wanted to get a feel for where our level of understanding was within the division in supporting our students with autism, and we also wanted to get some feedback as to what we thought our next steps needed to be. From those focus group discussions, we came up with some guiding thoughts for our division, what I like to call our big ideas. One of the things that we recognized was that we needed to develop a core understanding across people of what autism is. So we needed to do some foundational training. We also know that in these current budget times, we needed to take advantage of our existing tools and structures that we already had in place within the division whenever possible. We needed to use our resources wisely and effectively that we already had available to us. We also didn't want our work to be one other thing. We wanted to try to incorporate what we were doing within existing division initiatives whenever possible. Folks have a lot on their plates. We heard that from our focus group participants. And again, we wanted to make sure that the work that we were starting to do fell nicely within those existing initiatives that we already had within the division. And finally, another big step for us, and our big thought for us, was developing division leaders. We knew that the technical assistance that we were going to be getting from the Autism Center for Excellence was going to last for 3 to 5 years. We wanted to make sure that we had those division leaders in place, so as ACE started to draw back their support, we were able and ready to continue the work that we had started with them. So let's get specific for a few minutes. I'd like to start by talking to you about the Characteristics of Autism course that we developed. One of the things that we heard from our administrators within focus groups was that they felt like there was a need for some additional training on the characteristics of autism, but they had some ideas for us about what would constitute good training, what would work for them. They wanted the training to be available online. They'd like it to be able to complete it in multiple sessions. They wanted it to be easy to share with staff within their buildings. And they also wanted it to be an overview. In other words, they wanted it to be something that they could do within a couple of hours and come away with it with like a clear understanding of the basic characteristics of autism. So that's what we set about trying to create. We created an online course for our school-based administrators to take themselves. Once they completed the course, then they could share it with their staff members within their buildings. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so we used the existing online professional development tool that our division had already purchased. In our case, that was PD 360. And we also wanted to make sure that the information that we were sharing was good information, that it included those critical understandings. So we aligned the content of our course with the Virginia Autism Competencies Checklist. On the next slide, you'll actually see a screenshot from that PD 360 course that we developed. You can see that some of the topics that we covered within this course was prevalency rates with autism, communication characteristics, social characteristics and behavior patterns. We included an autism Q&A fact sheet as well as some information on comorbid medical conditions that often accompany autism. When our users clicked on these different sections within PD 360, they were linked to online resources where they could read more about characteristics, or they could watch a webcast or view a video that would give them more information. And by doing this, we were able to get our users, give them access to some of those online resources that are already available for them out there. So we included information from Autism Speaks. We included some Autism Center for Excellence webcasts, webinars. We just wanted to we wanted folks to be able to see what was already out there and available for them. We also added a discussion board feature to our online course because we wanted to encourage dialogue between administrators and also between administrators and their staff members. Another method that we used in increasing support and in encouraging systems change within our division was the creation of some collaborative learning teams. Within Hampton City Schools, we have really embraced the professional learning communities concept as a model for professional development delivery within the division. One of the things that we heard from our administrators is that they wanted their teachers to have specialized training in autism, particularly for those teachers in self-contained classrooms who don't necessarily have colleagues within their buildings who are doing the same or similar types of work. So we worked with ACE to create some collaborative learning teams for our self-contained special education teachers supporting students with autism and with other disabilities. We used 2 tracks within these CLTs. One was focused on communication, and the other was focused on specific evidence-based practices that have proven to be effective in teaching students with autism. This past year, we focused on visual supports and reinforcement. One of the things that our administrators said to us was, it's important for us to support our teachers who are working with students with autism, but the other piece is that we have other students with disabilities that we need to support and help them as well. So what we did through our collaborative learning teams was invited some other teachers to join us, specifically our early childhood special education teachers and our multiple disabilities teachers. We knew that the evidence-based practices that we were going to be sharing information on within the CLTs would work for other kids too. Within our CLTs, the format went a little something like this. We would have our teachers complete an online learning activity before they came for the CLT meeting. Typically, they would view a webinar or a webcast through the Autism Center for Excellence. We also used the Ocali Autism Internet modules as well for that online learning piece. That gave our teachers some background knowledge on the topic that we would be covering. Then when they came to the CLT meeting, they had opportunities to see that evidence-based practice being modeled, and then they had opportunities to try it out themselves within the comfortable and safe environment with their colleagues. When they left the meeting, they left with tools and materials to use in their own classrooms between the time of the next meeting. And when they came back, then they shared with the team how it went, what worked, what didn't. We celebrated successes, and we problem solved some of our things that didn't go so well. Finally, within Hampton City Schools, the other big idea that I mentioned earlier when I first started was that we wanted to make sure that we were developing expertise within the division for when ACE pulled back their technical assistance support. We decided to use a coaching model to develop building level expertise in autism spectrum disorders. Over the past school year, we have provided ongoing coaching support to classes at 4 different schools who are serving students with autism. We created coaching teams that were multi-layered. So we started by having someone working on the ACE grant, a coach. We also identified a division level coach. We had our administrators identify a building level coach. And then we included teachers, related service providers, and instructional assistants within our coaching teams. Our coaching teams focused on the use of evidence-based practices, data collection, and ongoing coaching support with the goal of improving teacher practice and increasing learning outcomes for our students with ASDs. As we've moved through these coaching sessions and we go into subsequent years, our goal is to gradually release responsibility away from the ACE grant coach to the division level coach and the building level coaches that we've identified within buildings. We're then going to replicate out into other schools using our division level coaches in subsequent years. Again, with the overall goal of having a systematic way to increase our levels of expertise throughout our schools within our division. That kind of wraps it up for what's been going on within Hampton City Schools. I'd now like to introduce you to Jessica Davis. Jessica is an administrator with Middlesex County Public Schools, and she's going to be sharing some information with you on how we can provide support across school divisions.
Thank you, Holly. My name is Jessica Davis. I'm an administrator in Middlesex County Public Schools. And I'm going to continue talking to you a little bit more in depth about the vital role that administrators play in supporting teachers and creating systems change within a school. When you go in to observe a teacher, you want to be able to really know what you're looking for and what you should be seeing going on in that classroom so that all the students' needs are being met. You want visible look for specific things to take notice of in that classroom. And you also want to be able to provide positive and specific feedback to teachers so that they can take some things back with them, implement them into the classroom, and enhance their teaching as well. Sometimes as administrators and as teachers, we haven't had formal training in students with autism spectrum disorder. However, nowadays with the increase in students with autism, more teachers are having classrooms where they need to incorporate different types of practices into their teaching. So as an administrator, you can provide this support. That's why this tool is so exciting. When we began developing this tool, I was looking at it as a classroom teacher's perspective. And I was thinking, how could this tool help my administrators support me when I have students with autism within my classroom? Now I'm looking at it from an administrator's standpoint, thinking, how can I use this tool to better support my teachers so that they can support their students and families with autism? Well, the exciting thing about this tool is that it provides a backbone. So whether or not you're formally trained in identifying characteristics of ASD or teaching students with ASD, this will give you a backbone to follow. It will guide administrators who have not had this formal training. It will give you visible look-fors and best practices to look for. Now, one thing to remember is that you may take this tool and go into a classroom and use it and not really be sure what the specific practices are. So you may need to take a little bit of time and research some of those, or look into them, or tap into some resources that you have available to you. For example, in Standard 1, Professional Knowledge, indicator number 6 says demonstrates accurate knowledge of evidence-based teaching practices, including reinforcement, prompting, visual schedules, and antecedent-based interventions. Well, you may look at this as an administrator and say, I want to look for this, but I'm not sure what visual schedules may be or visual supports may be. So you may need to take the time to become a little bit more knowledgeable about that so that you can actually support the teachers. But this tool provides you with those look-fors so you know where to begin in that process. A great resource that I would like to share with you in doing so and finding more of these best practices is the National Professional Development Center on Autism Spectrum Disorders. It's a website that I've visited many times myself. It provides evidence-based practices that you can become more knowledgeable on so that you can therefore share them and support teachers. Going back to the visual supports, if you go to this website, you can look that support up, and it will give you specifics. It will give you the evidence on that best practice. It will also tell you what skills or goals that can be addressed by using the support, and it will give you support checklists, step-by-step directions, so therefore you can share this with teachers. When looking at systems change, teachers are just as leery sometimes about not knowing what they need to be doing to effectively meet all students' needs. So they need administrator support. And there are different pieces that administrators can offer to teachers and to school and to staff. There are some obvious ones: being supportive, being patient, being willing to learn new things and to offer them to teachers and to talk about them. But there are some other steps that administrators can take, and that's the piece I was just speaking of: the research, getting a little bit more knowledge yourself so that you can guide those teachers. That way you can lead the conversations that need to be had. After going into a classroom and you know what you're looking for, now you can have the valuable conversation of saying, hey, we might need to change this, or you're doing this great. You may affirm what they're doing, or you may tweak what they're doing a little bit. This tool provides that guidance for administrators. And it's not a new piece that you have to do because it's fully aligned with the current tool that we're using now as administrators. Once teachers feel supported and teachers have the coaching in place, and they can have the constructive conversations with you as an administrator after you're in their classroom, and you can provide that feedback that they can use, you're empowering them to become more successful in teaching students with autism. And not only those students, but students with any kind of disability or any general education student. These practices apply to all students. So it is a great resource to take and to transfer out into your school. As Hampton City Schools said, as Holly said, they began with focus groups and they developed their system change through many different steps. There are all different kinds of things that administrators can do. They can develop collaborative learning teams amongst grade levels. They can get special education teachers and regular education classroom teachers together to get conversations going so that there isn't that break in between how to teach different students with different needs, but incorporating it all together. And that's how now with administrators and teachers being responsible for this, those conversations can really lend a hand in meshing all of those together and putting them into practice in the classroom. Some other things that administrators can do, and really one of the most important things they can do, is share their positive attitude of teaching students with autism in the general education classroom and putting all of these practices into place. Those positive attitudes can be shown through the way that you have conversations, the way that you guide professional learning communities within your school, as well as student placements and how you're placing students and where you're placing them. So all of those things can be carried over and build a structure within your school system where everybody feels comfortable teaching all students and meeting all student needs. Once you feel supportive and you can give that support to your teachers, then teachers are empowered. They're more knowledgeable. You will be giving them best practices to incorporate. You'll be sharing with them how to do this, different step-by-step ways to put it into practice, and their teaching will be enhanced, as well as when a teacher feels they have administrative support, then they become more effective teachers and they feel like they're more effective. So when thinking about systems change and thinking about how a division can work from the top down and the bottom up, think about how you could use this tool as an administrator to gain more knowledge yourself and to offer that knowledge to your teachers so that overall we can make more successful classrooms and more conducive learning environments to meet every student that enters that door. And you know, regardless of formal training that you or your teachers have, remember this is a start. This is a tool that you can use to begin to gain some more knowledge and to really get everybody on the right track. Thank you for your time, and later after this webcast, Holly and Noelle will be in the chat room if you have any further questions, or you just want to share an idea that you have, or you want to clarify something that was presented in this webcast. You can join them in the chat room soon. Thank you, and we hope that this tool will be useful and carried out across school divisions.